And welcome to At Issue. My name is H. Wayne Wilson. When we say newspaper, quite often we think of the Panagraph, the Register Mail, the Journal Star, State Journal Register, but there are a lot more newspapers out there serving primarily rural communities that they fill in the gaps, so to speak. And we're going to talk about the challenges and the successes of local weekly papers with a panel of local newspaper publishers and editors. Jim Nolan is here. Jim, you may recognize Jim as his political background, but he's here today as, are you the owner of the Stark County News?
President of a small corporation.
Okay,
right.
President of the Stark County News. And you have been publishing the newspaper since?
Well, my grandfather started it in 1897. It was defunct for about 20 years, and I restarted it when I moved back home about 12 years ago.
And also with us is Zach Ziegler. Zach is with the Henry News Republican. How long has the Henry News Republican been in the family?
My grandparents owned it. They bought it in 1966, and my parents bought it from my grandparents in 1997. And hopefully here in a few months I will be receiving it from my mother or purchasing it from my mother, and it'll be mine here in a few months or years.
Yeah, that's after Zach gets his degree in business from Robert Morris University. Also with us is Wendy Martin, and she's with two newspapers actually, the Fulton Democrat and the Mason County Democrat. You're the senior citizen, so to speak. I hope you don't mind that term.
I'm the senior citizen.
Well, but in terms of newspaper age, how long has it been in your family?
The Fulton Democrat has been in our family continuously since 1855. The Mason County Democrat has been in and out of the family since 1849.
And also with us is the youngster of the group. I'm not talking about chronological age here. I'm talking about newspaper age. Jeff Lampe is here. Jeff, how long has the...
Well, we created a paper in 2013, so we're the little baby of the table here, I guess.
and that is the Weekly Post is the name of that newspaper.
Correct.
And for those of you saying, Jeff Lampe, yes, he was the outdoor sports guy at the Peoria Journal-Star.
In another life, I worked at the Journal-Star 6 years ago, yeah.
So, thank you all for being here. I think where we want to start is there a way to describe or to define a weekly paper? Is that possible? Other than it comes out once a week.
Two things come to mind. I remember working at a larger paper where I was told we do not ever put pictures of someone holding a check in our paper. In a weekly paper, we'll put it in there. If we can get a face and a name and some news, we'll do it. And also, we run a big tomato contest. I don't think some of the larger papers would think that's very newsworthy. To me, that's one of my favorite features of the whole thing is the big tomato contest. That kind of news that's maybe not earth-shattering or world-breaking, but is something people want to talk about in the community. I think that's the essence to some degree.
So what's the definition of news for weekly versus daily?
Local. It's the local news. The news we cover is the news you're not going to read anywhere else. And if you read it, if it's on Facebook, you can at least be sure that we got the story right. And that's what we do.
Jim, you were going to add something else.
Well, we're social animals, and we need to know what's going on around us, among the folks around us. And when I was a youngster growing up in the Stark County News, personals were the big item. Where did the neighbors have dinner on Saturday night? And that's today's Facebook. But we're so much more than that. Our Stark County News covers 6 local governments every month. There's going to be a county board meeting coming up at 7 a.m. and we'll be there covering it and telling folks what they need to know about budgeting and taxation and what's going on in the schools, and you're not going to get that from the bigger papers.
And people always say, well, I'll just Google any news I need. But I challenge people to find a lot of these school boards, these village boards. There's nothing to Google. They're not anywhere on the internet. And so someone needs to cover these bodies, not that they're cheating or doing anything bad, but it's our taxpayers' money in a lot of cases, and it is important news to the people. And they're not going to just Google Stark County for a lot of the news they get out of your publication, I'm sure.
It's the stuff that people need to hear on a weekly basis. It's not necessarily like emergency news that you need to find out right away. It's stuff that the school board meetings, the city council meetings, the police reports, or other stuff that's going on in the community that people need to know about, that they deserve to know about, and they're going to get a true story every week from somebody, not just what you hear around town.
One thing I haven't heard yet is sports. What papers do, I know you do sports.
Oh, yeah.
I've picked up a copy of it, and you, why do you, I mean, not that you don't do news, but why do you do so much sports in your newspaper?
Well, I mean, I've always loved sports, and I do feel like it's a focus for the communities, the small communities. You know, you see the people at the games, people are talking about it throughout the week. And, you know, the larger papers have found a tougher time getting to the small communities to cover the teams. I mean, you know, they just don't have the staffing to do it anymore, and so they kind of have to pull things in a little bit. And as they do that, there's more of a market to cover the teams in Farmington and Elmwood and Brimfield and Princeville and everywhere else that maybe are accustomed to a level of coverage from somewhere else that they're not getting. But it's also fun, and it's kind of always fun to be in the know, you know. Well, you talk to the coach, what did he say about my kid? You know, that's a good conversation to have with someone. It creates relevance.
It means that you work on Friday nights during football season.
And Saturday afternoons, unfortunately, sometimes too. Yeah, right.
Other papers do sports. Jim, do you do any
Stark
sports?
County High's been in the football final or in the football playoffs for 22 years in a row, so you think we're not going to cover football? Yes, the back page and inside pages are football and basketball, and that's part of the social life of our community, very important. But we also cover the school board and talk about teacher issues and about budgets and about STEM education, and so it's not just sports.
Zach, sports in your newspaper?
We're very big into sports. The track and cross country teams are very successful. It's Henry and Midland that combine, and they're in the cross country season. Usually there's always something on the front page because they're always winning or they're always very competitive. Track is always very competitive in the state tournament, and we always have something on that. Basketball, we used to have somebody that would go to every single game and be there to report it, but here recently we haven't really had that, but that's something I'm looking to get back into, to be there to get out to people.
And down in Fulton, Mason County, how about sports?
Well, my husband is the photographer, so he takes the pictures at the games. That's probably kind of where I draw the line, is I do just about everything else but sports. So we do depend on other people to do the sports for us.
Jim, earlier you mentioned Facebook. I'd like to hear what the weeklies do with regard to social media. Do you use social media? In what capacity might that be?
Yes, we're on Facebook, and we have a website, and we receive more traffic there than we do in print. But I still continue to think that print is the critical medium of communication with our readers.
And Jeff?
I don't like Harvard guys, and so I'm not interested in making money for Facebook, which is started by some Harvard guys. You know, I don't really see, I mean, I do see some benefits, but I don't see financial benefits for our publication. And so I'd rather have people go to the newspaper to get their information that we've got, because in the pages of the newspaper are my advertisers, and I want you to see the advertisers every time you get the news. And in Facebook, I can't promise that's going to happen. So we do very little social media-wise.
And Wendy?
We have a Facebook page and all that. I'm not a big fan, and I don't think that there's enough time in the day to be making the required 6 posts to Facebooks and 3 tweets and whatever. We have a website. I'm really happy with the website we have. The newspaper is there. You can click through the whole page, through the whole newspaper as it appears with those advertisers' ads showing. You can read the headlines, you can see the pictures. There's a paywall. So if you want to read the story and you click, it will ask you to sign in, and if you aren't a subscriber, it will invite you to subscribe.
And for you, Zach?
We do not have any social media affiliation. We kind of just let it stay how it is with actual using the print advertising and being a print media based paper. Don't really mess with any of it. It's not really necessary for us. People say that we should do it, but it's our decision. That's what we've chosen to do, is to not have to deal with the internet.
And the question is, advertisers, you're a free distribution Jeff?
We go print
And-
9,000 a week.
And the rest of you are paid
Yes.
subscription newspapers. So I'd like to hear why you are free and how that works with regard to advertising.
In the rural communities, it is a difficult thing to run a business. You're certainly not going to get rich, probably in a lot of cases. And if we can go to every home in the community and bring the paper and your ad to them, there's a much better chance that someone's going to see it and come in and spend some money with your business. So that's kind of been the mentality. We need to help the advertisers, they help the paper, and we all build a better community in that way. You know, the larger papers just don't have the penetration in the small surrounding communities that they used to. So to advertise with them, while it's kind of neat to be in a big paper, is it very effective? Does it really work? Does it make the bottom line better? I mean, I would submit it doesn't in a lot of cases for the small businesses. So that's kind of the mentality. If everybody's got the paper and people are talking about it and reading it and looking at it for a period of time because there's actual news in it. You know, we have a lot of shoppers we deal with, and they do a wonderful job of spreading news, but there's not much to read in them to hold on to see that ad next door. So that was kind of the mentality of that.
Wendy, you've had experience both as a free distribution and a subscription newspaper. You actually went free and then came back to subscription. Why did you do that?
We had some competition come in that was operating as a free newspaper, and so this is 20 years ago. We felt like the best way to compete was to be free ourselves. And when they were done and went their way and we stayed, we went back to being a paid circulation newspaper, and it was a deliberate effort to do that. But our paid circulation, was back as strong as it was when we started. It's not, weeklies cost a lot of money. I think we're $42, $45, $47 a year maybe. And back then we were probably, 28. So it's not expensive.
That's the one thing that used to always drive me crazy. People would complain about a circulation price. They'd buy a $1.65 soda, and they'd buy a newspaper for $1 and complain about the newspaper being expensive. They drink the soda in a couple minutes, and they still have that paper they're reading. And I thought, how can you be upset about paying that $1 for something that's going to stay with you? You're going to clip pictures out of. You're going to tell your friends about. I mean, it's really a small cost.
Right. It's still less than $1 a week.
Yeah.
And people don't appreciate that our newspapers go beyond our immediate circulation area. We have hundreds of subscriptions that go to former residents who still do their banking and insurance work locally. And so those advertisements from our local paper are important beyond what a free circulation paper would do. Now, we happen to have a free circulation publication as well, and we think the two complement one another.
The Prairie Shopper.
Yeah.
There is a University of Missouri study that said that 3/4 of respondents read most or all of a local newspaper every week. I'd like to extend that conversation to the point where you may have so many subscribers, but is your experience that they hand it out to, my aunt or my next door neighbor, or you get much more coverage than just the subscriptions?
You know how news travels in small towns. If it's in the newspaper, people are probably going to talk about it. We distribute right around 2,000, and we have subscriptions that get mailed out through the mail, and we also have newsstands, whether it be grocery store or gas station or other places where people can pick it up. And say you've got one person that buys a newspaper and reads a story in it and they like it and they say something to 3 people, there's 3 more people going to buy the newspaper. And that's been successful for us in getting the news out. Not everybody may buy it, and it's their choice to buy it, but if people are liking what we're putting in there, then they're going to talk about it and say something to somebody else. Well, somebody else is going to want to see that themselves, so they'll go buy it. And our paper only costs 50 cents, so it's not like they're breaking the bank to go buy the newspaper. And they can go pick it up anywhere in town.
I stopped at 111 Coffee Shop in Wyoming this morning on my way down here and noticed a lady reading the Stark County News from the rack in the coffee shop. And of course the libraries and other settings have the papers available, which suggests the readership is far beyond the immediate circulation.
I think that's one of the best moments of newspaperdom is to deliver a paper and have them immediately start reading it. The conversation might stop because the people are actually engrossed in that paper. I think that's one of the reasons, at least for me, that's why I do the job, is because it's of interest to people. And to see that, like you saw this, well, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun. I mean, I have that experience every week with the newspaper. With our two newspapers, it took me a long time to realize how different they were. One of them competes with the Daily and the other one doesn't, and it's, got real solid circulation, and it's the biggest paper in the county. That paper, on Tuesday morning when the papers are just off the press, we have people lined up waiting to get their paper. And we sell a quarter of our newsstand copies on Tuesday morning for people who can't wait to get their paper. And by God, buy your own. This one's mine.
Yeah.
They want to be the first people to know the news. And the other paper, which competes against the Daily, and they have this daily habit, people get the paper and they've got all week to read it. And, I run around town with the Fulton Democrat in my hand, and people will say, "Oh, the Fulton Democrat, I love that paper. I read my mother's every Thursday." "Oh, the Fulton Democrat, that's a great newspaper. I give mine to my brother on Saturdays." And if we had all that pass along circulation, it'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But,
Let's talk about one of the issues that faces the rural community way beyond newspaper, and that is declining population. Not all communities are declining in population, but in general across the country, smaller towns are static, some are growing, but there's this decline in area population. Is there a concern amongst any of you that might impact your newspaper eventually? That the audience just isn't there to make it work financially?
Naturally, it's a concern. I mean, there's been a significant decline of young people in rural Illinois, according to the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs, during the past census period. So it has to be of concern to us, and that's one of the things the newspapers can do, and that is promote the communities and work with the schools to make the schools stronger and more attractive to young families who might want to move to a town of dear hearts and gentle people and good schools. So it's part of our challenge, and we work on it.
And you've been fortunate, some of your communities actually are growing.
Well, our proximity to Peoria with Brimfield and Edwards and even Elmwood to a lesser degree, in Princeville, you got a lot of people moving out into those communities, maybe not directly into the downtown area, but the surrounding area. So, we actually have some population growth. But, you talk about young people, one of the things that's always struck me is when we created this paper, one of the things I've heard again and again is people saying, "I didn't know there was so much going on around town." When you don't have a source to find out what's going on around there, sometimes it's hard to find it. You might not be on the right Facebook page or whatever it might be. Suddenly there's this whole world of, there's actually stuff going on in this little town, and it's kind of nice to read about it.
We had a runway fashion show at 111 Coffee put on by 7th Street Boutique in Wyoming this past week. and we were able to publicize it before, and we'll do follow-up with a lot of pictures of very attractive ladies.
That's always a good thing, right? It's
Yeah.
a good feature.
Let's turn to want to stay on the advertising topic in terms of sometimes big boxes, and big boxes aren't necessarily Walmarts. They might be Dollar General, something of that nature. They move into town and maybe a mom and pop closes. Has that presented an issue for your newspaper?
not for our newspaper. I think we're just far enough away and just close enough that Walmart's not coming in. So that's been pretty stable for us.
How about you, Zach?
Really the only effect that we've had is Dollar General that came in, but it didn't necessarily do anything to us. Just like for her, we're far enough away, whether it be between Princeton or Peoria, to a Walmart or a bigger store, so where they're going to go to the local store, the grocery store, or Dollar General there is pretty cooperative with everything. It doesn't really affect us in any way.
Jim, of course the question is, it's more difficult usually to deal with a corporate entity as opposed to the locally owned shop.
Yes, but we have a number of inserts from the big box stores, and we've been successful in making it clear to them that we are an important circulation that they need and that they wouldn't get otherwise.
How about you, Jeff?
You know, there's impacts. I mean, the Dollar General came into Elmwood, and it certainly has not helped the local grocery store. But the local grocery store doesn't advertise with me anyway, so, you know, and I hate to be mercenary in that standpoint, but it comes down to competition at some point. Sometimes it makes people raise their competition level a little bit, and it can actually almost be a good thing in that case.
Is there, Gatehouse Media owns 198 daily, or well, I'm sorry, weeklies, 198 weeklies. That's a lot of weeklies in a lot of different states. Gatehouse owns the Peoria Journal-Star, amongst other newspapers. Is there a concern that, and all of you are independently owned, family operated, is there concern that you might, that the independent local weekly paper might suffer because the big boys come in and start buying up these newspapers?
You made the point before when we were talking about it. I think it's one of the best things that can happen to us, because I think Gatehouse takes these papers, and I hate to speak ill of one of my former employers, but I will, and they bring them down to a lower level. There's not as much news content. So to some degree, it almost helps the weekly industry that the dailies have suffered to such a degree, because, you know, now the news value of our papers is greater than ever because there's not as much competition in the dailies.
Weeklies have seen, I mean, dailies have seen their circulation plummet. You know,
and
really,
their step into
ours
the week,
has not.
Yeah, and their step
Ours
into the
has-
weekly doesn't work very well because they strip them out. Basically,
Right.
it seems like.
Right. Yeah, and our circulation's not plummeted, it's steady.
Zach?
Just like Jeff had said, with them stepping in and you're not getting the news content, they're not willing to go to the local council meetings. I know Gary Smith comes to the council meetings in Henry, but they're not able to go to every single meeting and every single sporting event. They can't get the news that the people in town want, or they're not going to get the court news that people in town are going to want to see, because that's a big topic in our newspaper is, oh, did you see who was in the court news? Everything else, the gossip around the small towns. The big box newspapers, if you want to call that, is what they are, then they're not going to get the local news like what they should and what people are going to want, so people aren't going to buy it.
The reference to Gary Smith, by the way, he reports for the Journal-Star. He covers the suburbs, if you could say the suburbs, to the north of Peoria. You were going to add, Jeff.
Well, and I think it's a very different thing. You know, our office sits in Elmwood on Main Street. And when we do something that someone disagrees with, they walk right in and they let us know pretty clearly, and you know, that we haven't done something quite right. And I think in a lot of cases, you know, as these bigger groups move into the small communities, you know, these offices, they're not as responsive to the people. They might not even be part of the community in some cases.
You mentioned doing something wrong. For those of you who editorialize, even if it's not on a regular basis, are you cautious about how you editorialize, Jim?
I'm diplomatic. On the one hand, on the other hand, and here's how I come out. I think if readers appreciate that you're trying to present the several sides of an issue and then come down with your own perspective, that's much more acceptable than the rants you hear on radio and television today. And so while we don't editorialize every week, we save our firepower for key issues that are really, really important to the community, and then we'll have our say.
Wendy, you're shaking your head yes.
No, I'm just totally agreeing with Jim. We don't editorialize every week, but when there's really something, and usually it's just additional information that doesn't fit the news story, but we think that readers ought to know, you know, this is the behind the scenes things.
Zach, do you editorialize at the Henry News Republican?
Just like them, like not every week. If there's something that's important for like the city council. A couple years ago, we had an issue with the mayor, and that had come down to where the meetings you had certain things said, but then there was other stuff behind the scenes that other people had mentioned that was still newsworthy, not necessarily not able to be put in the paper, that got put into the paper just because people need to hear it. It's what they deserve to hear. It's their elected official for the town, so that's why they wanted to get it out there.
A final question to you, Wendy. the future of weekly newspapers?
I think it looks good. I really think it looks good. We're providing a service that nobody else is providing. Our readers are loyal, and you know, you talked about people complaining. You know, when you get a complaint, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good because it means they care. You know, if you've disappointed them.
15 seconds, Jeff?
I started a business in 2013 when everybody told me newspapers were dying, and I don't have much money in the bank, but I had more than I did in 2013, so I feel good about the future. I do think we provided a service that's lacking in a lot of cases.
And with that, we've run out of time. Television has a limited time. Newspapers don't. So pick up your weekly newspaper. Jim Nolan of the Stark County News and Wendy Martin of the Mason Democrat and the Fulton Democrat, thank you so much for being on that issue. And likewise, Jeff Lampe of the Weekly Post and the Henry News Republican, Zach Ziegler, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And we appreciate your conversation continuing in your own home about maybe you should pick up a 50-cent Henry News Republican. It won't break the bank, as he said. And we'll see you next time here on At Issue.